Today's session is specifically designed for dancers and movers, generally movers that have hypermobility and need hypermobility for their craft, like dance or gymnastics. And we are going to work on strengthening end ranges to improve the safety and efficiency of big, large, full range movements. I myself was a professional dancer in New York City for over a decade. I went to the SUNY Purchase Conservatory of Dance for dance performance and composition. And so I am no stranger to hypermobility and strengthening the joints within that hypermobility. So let's get started. We are going to work on ankles first. So we're going to work on joint centration, and then we're going to work on strengthening the joints in their end ranges, both inversion and eversion for the ankles. So let's start in a horse stance position. So your feet are going to be wide and your toes are going to point straight ahead. And then we're going to grab your short stick and place it at 12 o'clock straight in front of you. You're going to grab it hand over hand. You're going to drive the stick down into the floor at 40% of your max effort. So we've got some tension driving down into the ground. Our abdominals are engaged, our lats are engaged, and we're feeling that grip both with the hands and the feet into the floor. Spread out those toes nice and wide and then sink straight down into your horse stance. So the knees are gonna go straight ahead over the toes. We're sinking the hips straight down from the shoulders like you're on an elevator. And then we're slowly just gonna start lifting those heels into like a forced arch position. So we're just lifting the heels up, making sure the heel stays behind the second and third toe. We don't want too much of that eversion to start with. And then as you slowly lower, we're going to control that descent. So we're just going up and down in this parallel position of the hips and feet. And as you lift and lower, it's as if we're floating on water. So we want the head to remain in the same position. Now, your quads may start to get tired in this position over time. So just keep reminding yourself as you go to just keep sinking down a little bit lower. And slowly come down. We're gonna do 10 of these, lifting and lowering the heels, working on that joint centration, controlling the up, and especially controlling the down. We wanna make sure that the ankles are working in this sagittal plane forward and back before we go to our side to side and transverse plane rotation. We're gonna do 4 more. Lifting those heels, staying nice and low, and even thinking about bending the knees a hair more as you lower those heels down. Last 3, working with control. Keep driving that stick down into the ground. And 2 more, breathing through this. We want to feel grounded in this position. Last one, we're going to hold those heels up and then see if we can lift that stick 1 inch off the floor and hold this position here with those heels high, knees bent, balancing in that centered position of the ankles. Last 3, 2, 1. Bring the stick and those heels down and then slowly give yourself a break from that horse stance. We're going to get back into that position, switch the hands, so now the opposite hand is on top, and we're going to go into that frontal plane movement side to side. So we'll go back into that horse stance, driving the stick down at 40%, and we're sinking those hips straight down. We're going to lift that left heel up first, just 1 at a time. You can do this both sides at the same time, but let's just assess 1 side at a time first, and the next time you come back to the video, you can always work 2 sides at the same time. So once we're up here, we're gonna try to reach that heel over towards 9 o'clock. Now try not to twist the toes or the knee. They're gonna face straight ahead, and just that ankle, as if I'm poking your ankle from the side, is gonna push out to the left. So we're working that ankle inversion, and then we're gonna switch over to eversion, pushing that ankle inside, basically tipping on the ball of your foot. Now all your weight's on the ball of that big toe. So because we're in this horse stance position, we're really loading up this ankle at these end ranges. As I'm sure you know, it's very common to roll your ankle when performing athletic movements barefoot or with minimal shoes on. So we want to be able to train the ankle to work in and out of these end ranges. Go ahead and push back to that inversion to the side. And back to eversion. We're staying in that horse stance. nice and low. We're gonna do 2 more. Each time seeing if you can push a little bit further and control that range of motion. With hypermobility, you're usually gonna have a lot more passive range than active range, so you can stretch a lot further than what you can actually get to on your own, and we want to try to close that gap as much as possible. So moving in and out of these end ranges is going to help strengthen the entire range of motion. Last one, over to E version. And slowly bring that heel down, come up and shake it out. If you were doing both at the same time, you're just gonna do it again. But if we were doing one at a time, let's move on to the right leg. Drop to that horse stance. Lift that right heel up. We're just doing 5, nice and slow. Push out to 3 o'clock first with that right heel and hold. Make sure again that the toes and the knee are not twisting and rotating in this position. Let's slide over to E version. Stay low in that horse stance. Try not to lean forward on that stick. Keep that torso nice and upright. So if you did lift that stick, you would be perfectly balanced in this position. And back to E version, tipping on that ball of the foot. Make sure you keep breathing through this movement. Let's go back to inversion, pushing out each time, trying to get a little bit further, controlling all the way through to the end range. Over to E version. Notice how this might even reverberate up into the knee. So if you're experiencing knee pain, it could be stemming from a lack of control over that ankle mobility. And internal, or E version. And let's go one more time out to 3 o'clock. Quads should be burning by this point. Over to 9 o'clock. And slowly come back center before you lower that heel and rest. So let's go into transverse plane. We're drawing the heel around on a clock. So I'll show you from this side. And once again, you can do both of these at the same time, or you can do one at a time. So we'll go back to that horse stance position. Let's switch those hands again. Drive that stick down at 40% tension. Let's lift that left heel up. Now we're going to combine the up and down and the side to side. So the heel's at 12 o'clock right now. We're going to push out to that 9 o'clock position. We're going to roll that heel out and down towards 6 o'clock, grazing the floor with the heel through that 6 o'clock dorsiflexion position. Scrape that heel across over to 3 o'clock and then back up to 9 o'clock. So the more you bend your knees here, go ahead out into, again to the side, the more you're going to get out of this dorsiflexion here at the bottom. So we want to also work into that end range of dorsiflexion, and we're going to need a lot of knee bend in order to do that. Let's do 2 more in this same direction, moving nice and slow. Same goal as before, where we're really working to control the end ranges. Getting to that end range and then moving in and out of it. So each time we want to push just a little bit more, making sure we're not pushing through pain. If we do feel pain, just pull back a little bit. And then once we reach the top, we're going to reverse that. Sliding the heel over to 3 o'clock first, scraping the floor, down and around through 6 o'clock, shifting out to 9 o'clock, back up to 12, back in, slowly and with control, trying to hit all angles of that ankle, which even means up here, trying to lift that heel up as high as you can, controlling that as well. Get some nice toe stretching and movement in there. Out to 9 o'clock, back up to 12, and let's do that one more time. Quads are burning in this horse stance. Back out and up. All right, so let's come back center, shake it out. I'll show you from the back actually this time. So we'll go horse stance. Let's switch the hands one last time. This is our last set here. Wide stance, dropping down to horse stance. Drive the stick down at 40% tension. Let's lift that right heel up to 12, and let's go clockwise first. So we're going out to 3 o'clock. Sweeping down and around towards 6, across to 9, and back up. Let the toes react as they need to let the ankle really initiate the movement here and facilitate that full range of motion. We're going to do 2 more in this direction. Out to the side, working your way down. back into 9 o'clock, all the way up, smooth and with control. We're assessing here as well, seeing what feels good and what feels not as good. If you have a lot of sprained ankles or ankle and feet injuries, then that E version may be a little tricky. Let's go back to the other side. E version first, 9 o'clock, down towards 6, out and around to 3, and back up. Now the knee, even though we're not trying to twist it, can move around here. So it's going to kind of follow that circular path that the heel and the ankle are following. And that's perfectly fine. And then we're going to go one more time out to 9 o'clock, sweeping that heel down and across, 6 o'clock over to 3, and back up. Slowly bring that heel down and come on out of it. Great, so we're going to move on to some hip work. We're going to work into hip internal and external rotation and ranges once again. So we're going to get into our 90-90 position on the floor, which is similar to a fourth position on the floor. I'll show you with the left leg in front first. So you're going to use a wall. You can also just do this pressing the stick into the floor next to you if you don't have a wall nearby. But our stick is going to be pressed into the wall at 9 o'clock. Legs are going to be bent at 90 degrees and legs are going to be straight out from the hips at 90 degrees. So make sure that the left knee is not outside of that hip. We want it right in front of the hip. Make sure that right knee is not behind or in front of the hip. Again, we want it straight out from that hip. So we're going to go into internal rotation, passive range hold. So we are in basically a passive range internal rotation here. And if you're not, you're going to lift to your deepest active range. So the initiation is going to be that internal rotation, which means I'm turning the top of my thigh, this thumbs up, down towards the floor. Now that internal rotation is going to push you forward in that 90-90 position. So the goal is, it's as if I'm taking my foot and lifting, and once I can't go anymore, in order to lift higher, I have to shift forward. Now, coming back out of that position, we're doing the opposite. The body is initiating the movement, but you're going to try to keep your leg there for as long as possible until it reaches the floor. Now, we're doing this all of this without the hand holding on for assistance. So from this 90-90, this trail leg is in internal rotation. I'm going to try to lift my foot and the shin off the floor. So try to lift, and once you got it, you're going to try to hold that angle of rotation as you shift forward. Now, you may need to shift forward in order to lift up off the floor, and that's fine too. So we're driving into the wall to help stabilize the spine while that foot is driving you forward. So by now, we should have that foot and shin off the floor, and that outer hip is working hard to maintain that rotation. Now we're going to try to sit up and keep that foot and shin off the floor for as long as possible. And you may even need to lean back slightly before it's back on the floor. So let's do that again. We're going to initiate the movement with that internal rotation, lifting that foot and the shin. Keep that rotating as you shift forward. We're working into more and more hip rotation here. Cramping is normal if this is new to you. Hold. And then we're slowly coming back center, keeping the foot and the shin off the floor for as long as possible, trying to sit up tall without touching. And then release. Okay, let's do that 3 more times. Initiate from that internal rotation. We're driving the knee down. We're driving the stick into the wall. Trying to activate that outer part of the hip as soon as possible to lift up. And as you're going forward, we're still lifting with that foot and that shin. Thinking of rotating that top of the thigh towards the floor even more. Maintain that rotation as you sit up and try to keep it off the floor for as long as possible until we release that tension. Let's do that 2 more times. We're working a lot of oblique strength here as well. Initiate with that internal rotation as we pitch forward. Hold. And then slowly sitting back up, trying to keep that rotation for as long as possible. Release. Let's do that 1 more time. Drive the stick into the wall. Lift that foot and that shin as soon as you possibly can, and keep lifting as you pitch forward. Hold. And then slowly sit back up and release. So let's work the front leg before we switch sides. So we're going to do the same exact thing with external rotation. So now you're going to drive that stick into the wall. If you don't have a wall next to you, then you can just place your stick to the side. So we're driving. I'm going to take my right hand and place it on the butt of the stick, the butt end of the stick, pushing into the wall this way. My left hand is free. So now we're working into passive range hold of this external rotation front leg. So as we're going to try to initiate that movement again with the foot and the shin lifting off of the floor, and then it's going to take us over to the side with that rotation. So we're driving into the wall with that stick. And then you're going to try to drive the left knee down, lift the left foot and shin as it shifts you to your left. So the knee is down. I'm trying to lift that foot and the shin into external rotation. Your right knee can come off the floor. Try not to collapse that left side of the rib cage. Now you're going to come back center, trying to maintain that rotation as much as possible, lifting that foot for as long as possible. Back to 90-90. Now you're going to feel the outside of that left hip working really hard to maintain that external rotation or turned out position. So now let's do that again. Initiating with that external rotation, trying to lift the foot and the shin, and it's going to push you to the side. Keep driving the left knee into the floor. Ooh, and then slowly come back center, trying to keep that foot and the shin off for as long as possible before we release. Let's do that 3 more times. Each time, try to increase that tension just a little bit more. We're driving the knee down, lifting that foot up, especially once you lean away and reach your end range here. We're trying to find more tension to lift, drive that stick into the wall more, to lift into more external rotation, and try to maintain that for as long as possible. Back center. Let's do that 2 more times. Drive the left knee down, initiate from that external rotation as we shift and lift. Use that tension to lift further into that rotation. Maintain that as we slowly come back center. And let's go 1 more time. Driving into the wall, initiating with that rotation of that left thigh from the hip. Hold to the side. And slowly come back center. All right. So let's take a rest on this left side 90-90, and we're going to switch to right side. Right leg is going to be in front now. Go ahead and set up your 90-90 position. You'll quickly find out, or you probably may already know, which side is easier than the other. Right? We've got the right leg externally rotated, left leg is internally rotated, 90 degrees at both hips and knees. Flex those feet. We're driving that stick into the wall at 3 o'clock outside of that right hip. And we're starting with internal rotation, this left leg. I know we just did the external rotation of that side. We're getting double the work on that left side right away. So we're starting to initiate that internal rotation before we start leaning forward. So the goal is to try to lift the foot and shin just a millimeter off the floor before we start shifting forward into that active rotation and hold. And then as we shift back up, slowly keep that foot and shin off the floor for as long as possible before we release that tension. And then let's go again. Initiate that internal rotation. It's going to shift you forward. As you shift forward, keep rotating that thigh. Hold. And as you come back center, keep that foot and shin off the floor for as long as possible. And release. Let's do that 3 more times. Find that tension. Find even more tension this time. Internally rotate to shift forward into that active rotation. Hold here. Maintain that rotation as we slowly start to shift back, keeping that foot and shin off the floor for as long as possible. Before we release that tension. Take a deep breath. Let's do that 2 more times. Increase that tension here. I know we're getting a little tired, but the more tension, the more intention we use, the more benefit we'll get out of this movement. Maintain that rotation as we slowly shift back out of that position, back into the 90-90, finally releasing. And we're gonna go one more time. Shifting forward. Finding rotation. Hold. And maintain that as we come back out of it. And release. All right, so now let's stay in this 90-90 position. We're gonna work that front leg into external rotation passive range hold. So you're gonna take your left hand, place it on the butt end of that stick, driving that the stick into the wall to your right. Right hand is gonna be free. Now we're initiating with the external rotation of that front leg. So we're gonna try to lift that foot and that shin as soon as possible as we lean and shift to the right. Again, that left knee can come up. Just make sure that the rib cage is not sinking towards the floor. Hold that rotation. We're trying to turn the top of that right thigh towards the floor, picking that foot up as high as you can. And then as you come back center, keep it off the floor for as long as possible before we reset to that 90-90. Okay, take a breath, release the tension. Gather that tension again, driving into the wall with the stick. Drive that right knee into the ground. And as you shift, try to lift that right foot and shin as soon as possible. Shifting to the right. And hold. Now as we shift out of it, try to keep that right foot off the floor for as long as possible. And release that tension. All right, let's do 3 more. Drive that stick into the wall. Maintain that tension as we shift to the right, lifting that foot and shin as soon as possible. Feel the outer part of that right hip really working hard to rotate that thigh. Slowly come back center, keeping the foot and shin off for as long as possible. Release that tension. And here we go. 2 more. Drive into the wall. Increase the tension this time as we shift to the right. Drive the knee down. Lift that foot and shin up as soon as you can. Hold here. Slowly. Very slowly come back center. And let's go one more time. Shifting to the right. And hold here. And slowly shifting out of it. Keep that foot up for as long as you can. And release that tension. Nice work. Slowly come out of that position. So let's work some linear movement next. We worked the rotation and the movement of the ankles, the rotation of the hips. Now let's work some linear movement of the hips and the knee. So we're gonna grab our 2 long sticks and a slider or a towel if you have something that slides against the ground. And we're gonna work on sliding into a split, front and side, middle split. So we're gonna grab our slider. We're gonna, you might also need something to cushion under the knee. So I'm gonna kneel on a yoga mat. And we're gonna slide out into a split, and then we're gonna work some knee flexion and extension from there, just getting those hamstrings ready to produce and withstand force in that end range hip flexion. So a lot of times the hamstrings can take a beating because the hips are so mobile, the hamstrings can't struggle to produce force in that end range. So we get a lot of posterior chain injuries. So we're gonna work on flexing and extending the knee in our end range with gravity pushing us down. That's gonna hopefully strengthen those hamstrings there in those end ranges. So with the left knee down, right leg is going to be placed on the slider. We want your heel right on that slider. Try not to place your heel towards the back of the slider. Okay, so once we slide out, if you have your whole foot on the slider like this, it's probably gonna slide away from you. So we want the heel to be in the middle of the slider or slightly towards the front of the slider, further away from you. So left knee is down. You could tuck the toes under or have them untucked, whichever is more comfortable for you. The sticks are gonna be angled away from you at 11 and 1 o'clock. So we don't wanna leave the sticks back here. They're gonna be more help to us out in front. We're gonna hold those sticks at about shoulder height. or even a little bit higher at eye level. You're going to drive the sticks and the heel down into the ground at 40% tension, and we're going to slide out into your hip flexion. Now the knee doesn't have to fully extend, but we're trying to drive the heel forward and that left leg back. So we're headed towards a split, and we're going to end up in this hang position. Try not to overarch the spine here. We really want that work to happen in the hips. So I want you to drive those sticks down and keep that rib cage down. So lats are engaged, your shoulders are away from the ears. And then you're going to drive the sticks into the floor to pull yourself back up. Now let's increase that to 50% tension. We're going to do that just like that 2 more times. So we're increasing to 50% tension, driving the sticks and the leg into the ground as we slide forward. Maybe sliding a little further this time. Drive the sticks and that heel down to come back up. We're going to do 1 more, increasing to 60% of your max effort, and we're going to stay in that position. So we're going to slide out. At that end range, we're going to bend and extend the knee. So we want to try to keep the hips forward and low as we press down with that heel, bending that knee here, almost like curling the hamstrings, and then fully from here, extend that knee again. Your left glutes are going to also extend that left hip, and we're going to get deeper into that position. Let's do that 2 more times. Drive the heel down. You may need to use the sticks to pull yourself up just slightly, but try not to shift back. And then drive that heel down as we extend again. The left glutes are extending or engaged to extend that left hip as we slide further into that split. Now, again, we're curling the hamstrings. So we're really working on shortening the hamstrings from this fully lengthened position. Curl in as far as you can without shifting backwards, and then slowly slide it back out into a deeper stretch. Press down from here to come on up. Whew. And release. So we're getting into some really deep ranges of motion here, full splits, and then we're working the hamstrings in that end range. So let's switch sides. We're going to get a massive stretch in the front of that back hip as well. Make sure we're not pushing into the lower back so you can really get the full benefits of that stretch. So let's drive the sticks into the floor at 40% tension, drive that heel into the slider. Maintain that hip extension of the back hip. Try not to shift those hips forward first. Right, so we're driving that leg and heel forward. Try not to flare the rib cage as we slide out. We're at that 40% tension. Once we reach that end range, we're going to push down to slide back in. Now we're increasing that tension to 50% into the sticks and that left heel as we slide it out into that split. Notice that a little more tension can get us a little further into that stretch or a little more active in that full split. And drive down to come back up. I know it's easy to just hang out in the splits, but we're actively stretching, which is actually going to increase the strength in that passive range of motion. This time we're at 60% all the way out. We're going to hold this position. Try not to shift your hips or your body weight back as you bend that left knee. Curl, curl, curl with those hamstrings. And extend. Notice how that right hip also extends and is active in sliding that left heel back out in front of you. And let's do that again. Drive the sticks down, drive that heel down, curl with those hamstrings, bend, 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 bend. Keep driving down as we slide that left heel back out. We're at 60% tension here. We can work all the way up to 70 if you feel really good. Drive that heel down into that slider as we bend the knee, curling those hamstrings, and then fully extend into that deep range of motion and drive down to come back out of it. All right. So we're going to repeat this same movement, but to the side. So we're going to go into almost like a half middle split. So we're going to be in a half kneeling position again. I'm going to show you with the left leg first, just so I can face you. Right knee is going to be down. Now, the left leg is going to be externally rotated or turned out. The right leg is going to be internally rotated or parallel. So the right foot is going to be right behind that right knee. So we're not going to externally rotate that back leg. And that is so we can really focus on the abduction and external rotation of the left leg only. So we're really isolating that left side. We'll get a little internal rotation stretch on that right side as a bonus. So once again, we're sliding the foot on the slider, but I want your heel to be in the middle or a little further away from you. Now the sticks are going to be to your left or whichever way you're sliding to. Okay, so because as we slide to the left, in order to get back up, we're going to want to use those sticks and we're going to want them to be a little bit closer to us out there in that position. Okay, so knee is turned out to the side. Body, however, is going to continue facing straight ahead, holding at about shoulder to eye level. Again, with those sticks, we're starting at 40% tension down into the sticks and into that right leg. And again, we're extending out here into half of our middle split, feeling some internal rotation stretch of that right leg as well. And then we're going to drive down to come back up. Increase that tension to 50% as we slide it out. Nice, deep, active stretch. And then we're going to push down to come back up. Increase to 60%. As you get better at these, you can put more tension into the legs than the sticks once we're really good at just holding and producing force in that position with the leg only. So we're going to do the same thing we did with the front split. We're going to bend that knee here, trying to pull that left knee up towards the left armpit. And then we're going to slowly extend, trying to get further into that range of motion. And let's go again. Bending that knee, pulling that left knee up to the left armpit. Try to keep those hips underneath you so we're not leaning too far forward here with this one. Slide it back out. And we can go one more time, bending, pulling that slider towards you, working those hamstrings in this abducted position. Slide it back out, and then we're going to slide up from here back to that starting position. All right, let's turn around and switch sides. So now the left knee is going to be down. Right heel is going to be on that slider. You can tuck the toes under or not, whichever feels best. And then we're going to reach those sticks to your right, grabbing at eye level or a little bit higher. Drive down at 40% tension as we slide out, this time focusing on the right leg. Make sure those hips stay underneath you. So we're not trying to lean that chest forward in this stretch here, almost like a Van Damme. We're just trying to keep those hips underneath. Increase the 50% tension, driving down as we slide out. Finding an internal rotation stretch on that left side as well. And then come on back up. Increasing to 60% tension this time. We're going to stay here. Sliding out into that half split on the right side. We're going to drive down at 60% tension, curling, driving the knee up towards the armpit. Slide it out with control. And we're going to go 2 more times. So we're really strengthening these hips at this end range here. Use those sticks as much as you need. And one more time, driving down with that heel, pulling that knee up towards the armpit. Bending as far as you can, and then slowly extending that knee, and slide it back in to rest. Nice work. So we're just going to do an active stretch to finish. We're going to rotate the spine. So we did a lot of hip work today, a lot of ankle stuff and knee stuff. So let's just stretch with some spine stuff. This is very gentle. So we're going to go into a half kneeling position. Left knee is going to be down. I have my stick in my right hand. I'm going to thread the stick underneath the front leg, which is my right leg. And then I'm going to attach the butt end of the stick to the front of my left knee. So we've got this cross-body position of the stick. So that stick is going to help stabilize the hips while we can just rotate the spine on top of that. So I'm still holding the stick with my right hand. My left arm is going to reach across the body, grabbing the stick. Drive that stick down at 30% tension as we pull that stick towards 12 o'clock. So I'm getting some almost wind up here. Pulling that stick towards 12, that's gonna add some stability to the hips. And then you're gonna let go of that right arm and you're gonna open up towards 3 and 6 o'clock. So towards that front leg. And at the same time, I'm still trying to pull this stick towards 12 o'clock. So I get a nice stretch in the spine here. Nice deep rotation. And then we'll come back center. Readjust if you need, pulling towards 12 o'clock. And open that right arm again. A few deep breaths here in this rotation. And come back center. And let's do that one more time. Reaching that stick across the body towards 12 o'clock. Maintain that tension as we open that right arm. Exhale, rotate a little bit further. Slowly return and release the tension, and we'll switch sides. So now my right knee is down, left leg is forward. I'm going to thread the stick from the outside of that left thigh, attach it to the butt end of that right leg. Reach across the body with that right arm. Right arm's going to grab on top. And then we're going to pull that stick towards 12 o'clock, 30% tension. Release the left arm and open, turning that torso, rotating that spine. Slowly come back center, readjust if you need. Pulling that stick towards 12. Hips are nice and engaged, almost trying to separate the floor between those 2 feet as we rotate. Slowly come back center, readjust as needed. And last time, opening that left side. Keep pulling that stick in that right hand towards 12 o'clock. We'll get more rotation that way, more leverage for that rotation. And slowly come back center, release that tension to come on out of it. Very nice work. I hope you feel like you got some strengthening work in at your end ranges of joints that we may not necessarily address in a lot of these movements like dance and gymnastics. I know that internal rotation and a lot of that ankle work is pretty intense. So thank you so much for joining, and I hope you are feeling great after this session, and I'll see you next time.